Hello, and welcome to Discovering Shared Solutions, a workshop designed to assist parents, educators, and students with options in preventing conflicts and quickly resolving those that surface. This workshop is presented by the Learning Disabilities Association of Sudbury. Our workshop's content is based on the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution document, available at the Ministry of Education's website, www.edu.gov.on.ca. To support the following training modules, please consider downloading the Shared Solutions document or acquire a hard copy from either your child's school office or through the Ontario Ministry of Education's Publications link. This guide addresses conflicts affecting students with special education needs and is intended to help parents, educators, and students to work together to prevent conflicts and to quickly resolve any that surface. In this presentation, we will utilize a visual puzzle metaphor while we focus on providing key information about understanding conflict, preventing conflict, and resolving conflict. By reviewing the document, Shared Solutions, the intention is that you will enhance your advocacy skills as you piece together the connections that support your child's success. Let us begin with an introduction module to Shared Solutions. We hope that by the end of this module, you will have acquired a greater understanding of the following concepts: commonly used terms that we will be referencing throughout our workshop, and the roles and responsibilities of both the parents, educators, and school officials. We will then end this module with a brief ongoing activity. As this is an interactive presentation, we recommend that you have a pen and paper readily available to participate in our activities, designed to engage you and to assist your learning experience. When conflicts surface in education, we each contribute vital pieces to solving any puzzling conflicts. It is by working together to find the connections between the puzzle pieces that we can foster student success and prevent conflicts. Throughout this presentation, and within the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution Guide, there are common key terms that will be used. We will define a few of the common terms in this section. OSR. OSR is an acronym for Ontario Student Record. It is a record of a student's academic achievement and related information such as report cards. Students and parents and/or recognized caregivers have the right to request access to and copies of this personal student information. That includes access to an office index card with contact numbers and biographical data, the individual education plan for the student, additional information identified as being conducive to the improvement of the instruction of the student, including any form of assessments. IPRC is an acronym for Individual Placement Review Committee. The IPRC committee must have at least 3 people, one of whom must be a school principal or a board supervisory officer, as well as a selection of experts such as the special education resource teacher, the child's classroom teacher, an agency representative who may provide further information or clarification. Review by this committee can be initiated by a student's parent who expresses concern that their child has learning challenges that require support. The written request is made to the principal, who then starts the process. This review process includes consideration whether a child meets the criteria of an exceptional student, and this must be supported by psychological assessments conducted by the school board. Identification of the special education needs of the student, recommending the type of placement for instruction based on the special education exceptionality. The committee then invites the parent, and hopefully the student if they are at an age of understanding, and possibly a parent advocate, to a follow-up meeting to review the recommendations regarding special education placement. IEP is an acronym for Individual Education Plan. An IEP is the school's written plan of action for the special education student and is created out of the recommendations from the IPRC. An IEP outlines the areas of strengths and needs to ensure the student's success and provides a method of evaluation and a monitoring cycle. The principal ensures that the parent and student is consulted in the development and review of the student's IEP. A copy of the IEP is provided to the parents for their approval upon its completion. Some of the strategies and resources included within an IEP can include the following: specific accommodations, human and material resources, teaching strategies required by the student, intensity of that support, and who is responsible. While an IEP can be created without the time constraints of an IPRC, it is not binding without the IPRC process. This could be problematic if and when a child changes schools. All of these terms can be further explored on the Ministry of Education's website under Special Education. Lastly, we are going to explore the term accommodations versus modifications. For a student with a learning disability, accommodations are intended to bridge the gap regarding academic difficulties with grade-level curriculum, where modifications for a student with a learning disability would have the student working below the range of their abilities. Furthermore, accommodations do not change what the student is expected to learn. It does change how the content is taught, how the content is assessed, or how it is made accessible. Accommodations ensure the objectives of the course or activity are at grade level. Now, modifications. Modifications made for students with learning disabilities in the early years may be utilized for the short term. The intention here would be to have the young student develop confidence with a set timetable of how to reintegrate the student into grade level work. Modifications do change what the student is expected to learn. It also changes how the content is taught, made accessible, or assessed, but the objectives are not at grade level. I hope this section has provided you with a greater understanding of common terms used throughout this topic. Now let us look at the roles and responsibility for each: the parents, the teacher, the special education teacher, and the school principal. When each person has an understanding of their role and responsibility, we can continue to work together to foster student success through a shared solution approach. In dealing with conflict, there is a communication protocol, a chain of command of sorts. The first individual a parent should advocate to on their child's behalf would be the teacher, then the special education teacher, and lastly, the principal. We will first begin by talking about the roles and responsibilities of parents. For parents, they can begin to participate in IPRC and IEP meetings, become acquainted with the school staff who work with the student, and support the student at home, and they are responsible for the student's attendance at school. Now that you have an understanding of your role as a parent, let us look at the teacher's roles and responsibility. The teacher works with the special education teacher to acquire and maintain up-to-date knowledge of special education practices. Where appropriate, they develop the IEP with special education staff and parents for the student with special education needs. They provide the program for the student with special education needs in the regular classroom, and the teacher communicates the student's progress to parents. We must also consider the roles and responsibilities of the special education teacher. The special education teacher has the same responsibilities as the teacher, but his or her role also includes the following: monitors the student's progress with reference to the IEP, and assists in providing educational assessments for exceptional students. Lastly, let's look at the school principal's roles and responsibility. The school principal communicates ministry and board policies and procedures about special education to staff, students, and parents. ensures that the identification and placement of exceptional students through an IPRC is done according to the procedures. For a more extensive list of roles and responsibilities, please refer to the Ministry of Education's Shared Solutions Guide, pages 43 through 46. Before we move ahead with our next module, let's see how you define a conflict. You will need a pen and paper for this activity. The first part of this activity requires that you write down 6 words that come up for you when you think of the word conflict. These words can be a synonym, a metaphor, a noun, a verb, adjective, adverb, your choice. It's what comes up for you when you think of conflict. Simply take a moment to write down those 6 words. We will revisit this activity in an upcoming module. We will now take a look at the next module, which will aim to define a learning disability. By the end of this module, you will be able to define a learning disability, recognize some of the key facts regarding a learning disability and how they impact learning, and we will end with a short activity that will test your beliefs about who is affected by a learning disability. We will begin by providing you with a greater awareness regarding this identification of learning disability. The Ontario Ministry of Education recognizes 12 disabilities, listed alphabetically here. All of these disabilities cause learning difficulties, but there is only one category that meets the criteria and actually carries the name learning disability. The research, and now the science, thanks to fMRI machines, where we can see the activity inside the brain, make it clear that a learning disability involves differences in brain function that cause the brain to process information differently. Processing information involves the way a student may receive, store, retrieve, and/or communicate information. Depending on the severity of the learning disability, the difference can affect one, some, or all of these different processes involved in learning. Statistics Canada reports that of all children with disabilities in this country, more than half, 59.8%, have a learning disability. That is more than all of the other 11 exceptionalities combined. The high numbers warrant that we understand the facts about what a learning disability is so that we are relating to those students appropriately. Now let us look at the facts about a learning disability and how those facts affect learning. First and foremost, a learning disability is an invisible disability. There are no physical characteristics associated with it. You cannot look at someone and know that they have a learning disability. But what does become noticeable, especially once a child enters the school system, is that they are struggling with aspects of the curriculum. Hopefully, before too much time passes, a teacher or parent voices a concern and an educational assessment is conducted. What the tests reveal is that these students are smart. There is a measurable discrepancy between their intelligence and their ability to express their intelligence. The discriminating factor for these students is that they process information differently. Their brains are not defective in any way. They simply process information in a different way than the mainstream learner. It is important to note here that their ability to think is not affected. Some of the world's most amazing thinkers are people who are known to process information differently and who test as having a learning disability. If a student has difficulty with processing information, it stands to reason that they will have difficulty in school, because that is an environment where students are asked to process information all day long. For 80% of students identified with a learning disability, the processing difficulties involve the decoding of symbols. Letters and numbers are symbols. As a result, all school subjects that involve logics or linguistics will be difficult, and students will be tested on their weaknesses daily. That being said, students with learning disabilities have great abilities. What they're really good at may not show up in the school curriculum. Often, They may know the material, but they may find it hard to prove how smart they are on paper. Barriers to providing how smart they are may involve penmanship, spelling, sentence structure. To support their abilities, now students can utilize different methods or equipment to complete tasks with efficiency. A learning disability is lifelong. We don't need a cure for these uniquely organized brains. What students need is an understanding of how they learn and strategies and accommodations so that they can successfully negotiate their learning disability. There is a huge range in this disability. The larger the range, the more areas of learning it is going to impact on. For some, it may just be one challenge, an example being mathematics. But if it impacts on the decoding of words, their learning disability will quickly impact on every subject. What many people may not realize is that a learning disability is very common. 1 in 10 Canadians has a learning disability. Students with learning disabilities are in every classroom, and every teacher must be prepared to utilize instructional approaches that tap into the potential of these students. The statistics of 1 in 10 is not going to change, and that's due to the hereditary factor. The jury is out on whether the hereditary factor is genetic or environmental. But what is well established is that it shows up in families. Understandably, for many parents who struggled in school, when they find themselves witnessing their child's struggle, it is their worst nightmare. For them and for all parents, this is why it is so important to understand this exceptionality and to know how to advocate for your child. The facts about a learning disability and understanding how it affects learning are important pieces to the shared solutions puzzle. Now that we know some of the facts about a learning disability, let's try to identify some of the popular individuals who have a learning disability. Who do you believe from the given list of actors has a learning disability? Patrick Dempsey, also known as Dr. McDreamy, Keira Knightley, and or Orlando Bloom. The answer is all of the above. And there are millions of successful people who have a learning disability. As pictured here, everything from princes to celebrity cooks. Remember, this is the potential we are advocating for. Now let's move on to our next module. This next module will be focusing on understanding conflict. By the end of this module, you will have acquired a greater understanding of what a conflict represents and why it arises, acquired an understanding of some of the reasons conflict occurs in special education, an understanding of the common responses to conflict and which are most suitable in creating a shared solution, an understanding of the benefits of conflict and how opportunity can arise out of conflict. We will then end this module by revisiting our initial activity that defined conflict, and you will also participate in a second activity that aims to identify how you respond to conflict. Let us attempt to answer the question, what is conflict? Firstly, conflict is natural, even healthy, but an unresolved conflict is unhealthy. Conflicts will arise. It is inevitable, and they happen when something important to you is threatened. Take a moment and think about it, about a time when something important to you was threatened and how a conflict arose. Conflicts could involve various people in your life. Perhaps that's why you are interested in reviewing this material. You could be thinking about a teacher, a family member, an in-law, a supervisor at work, a coworker, or even a child. It is important to keep in mind that you are the sum total of all of the influences in your life. These influences include your values, your interests, your experiences, your personal styles, your culture, and your history. These influences all create your worldview. The way you react to a situation is filtered through this worldview. And because everyone has their own worldview based on their lives, then we don't see things as they are. Conflict is inevitable because we see things as we are. Now that we recognize that conflicts do occur, let us explore some common reasons that conflicts occur in special education. Conflicts in special educations can occur due to planning conflicts, where there are different perspectives on a student's needs. Implementation conflicts, where there is the perception that programs and/or services are not adequately delivered. And there can be relationship conflicts that represent different conflict resolution styles, or maybe based on history, there is a lack of trust. There are more factors that have been identified to contribute to conflict. For a more detailed list of factors that contribute to conflict in special education, please refer to the Ministry of Education Shared Solution Guide on pages 12 and 13. Let us take a look at some common responses to conflict. Some common responses to conflict can involve fight, which is an aggressive response and represents a form of aggression. Aggression is not a means of resolving conflict because of the tension it creates and resistance that it creates, and that does not support shared solutions. Another common response to conflict is flight, which is an avoidance response. Avoidance or yielding on an issue is not addressing the conflict, and so it won't allow for opportunities for the issue to be resolved. Lastly, unite is a collaborative response. When we are willing to collaborate with the other person, there are opportunities for us to work together towards addressing the conflict. To open the door to collaboration, you must confront the issue that is creating conflict. The Encarta Dictionary defines confrontation as to bring something to the attention of someone else. So you cannot advocate without confronting. You must confront the person about the issue or it will continue. You must confront. This will ensure that all concerns, issues, and behaviors are addressed, but from a supportive and factual context. Now, there are some benefits to conflict. While this may be challenging to understand right now, let us take a look at some of the examples in order to demonstrate this concept. Some of the benefits of conflict can include: you create new ideas by really hearing someone else's point of view, or you may come up with an entirely new way to view things based on what arguments and points have been raised in the conflict. You see different perspectives, whether or not you agree with those that you are in conflict with. Engaging in conflict will allow you the opportunity to see different perspectives. You don't have to agree, but it is beneficial to try to communicate, verbally or non-verbally, that you see the other person's view. You learn about others. You will learn not only about their particular points of view, but also about the way they choose to address conflict. This may prove useful in future conflict resolutions with this same person. And lastly, you learn about yourself. You learn what you believe about that particular topic, but you also learn more about how you choose to raise points, what pushes your buttons, and what makes you more open to others. Every conflict is a learning opportunity. It is where we can grow by learning from our mistakes and our successes. Now that we have a greater understanding of what a conflict is and how there can be some benefits to conflict, let's revisit our activity, Defining Conflicts. The first part of this activity required that you write down 6 words that came up for you when you think of the word conflict. Now in part 2, I'll ask you to eliminate 2 words from your list of words. You should now work it down to 4 words. We will revisit this activity in a few moments. Let's move ahead to another activity that will aim to define how we handle conflicts. This next activity has been adapted from Pamela Owens of the Edge of Your Seat Consulting. You will need a pen and paper for this self-paced activity. We will be asking you 6 questions. Please indicate your answer on a piece of paper by writing the letter that best applies to how you would deal with this situation. We will then go through the shared solutions-friendly answers. Let us begin. The first question is, during a workplace meeting, a coworker implies that you are the reason for the lack of success with an assignment. Do you, A, You confront him or her directly during the meeting. B, you say nothing. You're in complete shock. C, after the meeting, you pull him or her to the side and ask if you can speak with them. Take a moment to choose the most appropriate answer. Let us now review the answers. If you chose A, this represents a public confrontation, which is an act of aggression. If you chose B, saying nothing leads to no resolution. And if you chose C, addressing the issue post-meeting allows for a conversation, a collaborative approach, one-on-one, regarding the conflict. Let's try the next question. You are participating in a discussion that is quickly escalating between two of your coworkers. A, you side with the staff who has seniority. B, you stop participating in the discussion. C, you intervene and explore solutions. Take a moment to choose your most appropriate response. If you chose A, this represents picking a side and teaming up in a way, and that's an act of aggression. If you chose B, avoiding is self-explanatory. There is no opportunity for a shared solution here. And lastly, if you chose C, by intervening and offering to explore solutions, you open up the avenues to collaboration. Let's move on to the next question. The Academy of Management Journal reports that principals spend what % of their time dealing with conflict? Was it 10%, 20%, or 30%? The answer is 30%. That is a high percentage of a principal's day, and it's being spent addressing conflicts that could be settled between the individuals that it affects. Our next question is, with a coworker, your conflict style is A, turn the other cheek. B, confront them. C, discuss the situation with others. Take a moment to think about how you deal with conflict in the workplace. Let us now review the answers. A is turning the other cheek, and that's avoiding conflict. B is confronting them, and again, this is not an aggressive act. It is an opportunity to voice a concern and to begin the process of working towards a solution. And lastly, if you chose C, discussing the situation with others, that is actually a passive-aggressive act. It does not include the person with which you are in conflict with, and there is no opportunity for change. Our next question is, what do you believe are the two most common causes of conflict in the workplace? Is it A, poor communication and personality conflicts? B, incompetence? C, negative attitudes and a lack of team player mentality? The answer there would be A. Poor communication and personality conflicts are the most common causes of conflict in the workplace. Let's move ahead to our last question. If you have conflict with a superior at work, what approach would you choose? A, say nothing and suffer. B, talk to their superior about the issue. C, confront them. Take a moment to answer. For this question, if you chose A, saying nothing, but still being upset, this represents avoidance. If you chose B, speaking with their superior, that's actually, again, a passive-aggressive act. It also does not follow the chain of command when dealing with conflict, which was covered earlier. And if you chose C, confronting them, well, that's equal to collaboration. This activity identifies how aggression implies the use of power, our fight or flight mechanisms. Avoidance means inaction and represents our flight or freeze behavior. Most importantly, collaboration means to problem solve, and thus to unite, which is the key ingredient when advocating. Remember, collaboration is the key to our success. Now let's move on to our next module. This next module focuses on preventing conflicts. And by the end of this module, you will be able to List some aspects that represent a positive school climate. Define some key meeting strategies that will help to prevent conflicts. Understand the importance of a preventative mindset through the development of a management plan. And we will then end this module with part 3 of our initial activity to define conflict. A first step in preventing conflicts is to foster a positive school climate where everyone can benefit. A positive school climate includes the following elements. Students feel good about themselves as valued learners whose achievements are respected. Parents feel welcomed and involved and are reassured that their children are receiving a good education. Educators feel that their expertise is respected so that they can focus on what they do best, which is teaching students. The intention of all parties is to have an opportunity to feel all those good things by achieving a positive school climate. In order to achieve a positive school climate, we must also consider some of the hallmarks that have been identified by the Ministry of Education. These include the following. Everyone is treated with respect. Parents are involved in school activities. Everyone feels safe and secure. There is a sense of community amongst the school. Learning disruptions are minimized. And the successes of both students and staff are celebrated. For a more extensive list of hallmarks, please review the Ministry of Education's Shared Solutions Guide on pages 17 to 21. To further maintain a positive school climate, there are some meeting strategies we can discuss for both before, during, and after a meeting. Before a meeting, ensure that the purpose of the meeting has been established and perhaps an agenda has been prepared and agreed upon in consultation with all participants. And if notes are required, a note taker has been identified and agreed upon in advance. During a meeting, ensure that all participants are introduced and have an opportunity to state how they see the issue. Listen attentively and with an open mind to another's view. Avoid drawing premature conclusions about others' views and/or about potential solutions. And lastly, after a meeting has been conducted, be sure that the note taker prepares a summary of the meeting that clearly outlines the key points discussed and any action items or decisions made, the next steps agreed upon. The date, time, location, and purpose of any follow-up meeting is scheduled. Ensure that copies of the summary are sent to all those who attended. Unplanned conflict responses often result in escalation. An alternative is developing a strategy, a management plan that can foster a preventative mindset. Your management plan can include the following items. Listen attentively and intently. Acknowledge the other party's position. Acknowledge the validity of the other party's feelings. Apologize if it seems appropriate to do so. Use humor. Change the timing of a meeting or take a break. Use yes and instead of yes but. Ask questions that elicit a yes response. Change language from you to us. Agree on a shared, mutually acceptable solution. For a more detailed list of items that can assist you in creating a shared solution approach, please refer to pages 49 and 53 of the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution Manual. Now we are going to return to our initial activity to define a conflict. The first part of this activity required you to write down 6 words that came up for you when you think of the word conflict. Then in part 2, you eliminated 2 words from your list that defined conflict. Now, in this third part, eliminate another 2 words from your list. You should now have it down to 2 words. Based on the information from this workshop, You may now be mindful that your list is a representation of your new understanding of conflict. Let us take a look at the 2 words that you have left. Initially, there were many negative, probably emotional words on the early list. And as we presented various concepts, it provided you with an opportunity to look at your word choices objectively. Now that you have a greater understanding of a shared solutions approach, when eliminating our words, the emotions tend to fall away, and we try to communicate more clearly and concisely so we can focus on a positive representation of our words. Good job. We will now move ahead with our last module, Strategies and Concepts to Assist in Resolving Conflicts. By the end of this module, you will have a better understanding of the following concepts. Appropriate steps you can take in resolving conflicts. Active listening techniques that can contribute to a shared solution approach. The do's and don'ts that will assist you along your journey. The concept of a parent advocate who can assist you in your process. And a proactive approach to resolving conflicts. Let us begin with a few steps that can assist you in resolving conflicts. These steps are further defined in the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution Manual on page 35. Our first step in resolving conflict involves defining the issue. A problem well stated is a problem half solved. Also, it is important to agree on a shared definition of the problem. Secondly, we want to share issues and ideas while identifying different points of view and clarifying the thinking behind them. Third, generate and explore possible solutions amongst everyone at the table, and be realistic by identifying the implications of each solution. Fourth, predict some possible consequences, eliminate the least workable situations, and rank the final few. Fifth, choose a solution and develop an action plan to achieve an outcome. Record who is doing what and set a date for the follow-up evaluation. Lastly, develop a follow-up evaluation that will evaluate the outcomes and explore learning by asking these 2 questions. Is the proposed solution working, and are any changes needed to the initial plan? These steps will assist you in creating a shared solution approach. Here are some active listening techniques to help you through your journey. These techniques and others can be found in the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution Guide on page 29. These techniques include the following: attending, the ability to pick up on verbal and nonverbal cues; clarifying when needed; asking questions; encouraging others to participate and provide their opinion; reflecting on concepts and comments; summarizing information; and paraphrasing to ensure a clear understanding of concepts and discussions. Maintaining an active listening mindset will further assist your process in creating a shared solution approach. In order to come to a resolution, here is a list of do's and don'ts. This list can also be found in the Ministry of Education's Shared Solution Guide on page 30. As the do's are the polar opposite to the don'ts, let us consider the do list first. Do, look for solutions. Focus on the problem. Take a non-adversarial approach. Use dialogue. Focus on the student's interests. Think that everyone can win. Focus on change. And lastly, the don'ts. Don't look for someone to blame. Don't focus on the person. Don't take an adversarial approach. Don't engage in debate. Don't focus on a predetermined outcome. Don't think that someone has to lose. And don't focus on control. We will now discuss advocacy in terms of resolving conflict. Parent advocacy can be an integral part of resolving any conflict. Parents may wish to work with a parent advocate if their child's needs are complex, or if they feel that the intervention of a third party might be helpful. A parent advocate will aim to achieve the following. They will accompany the parents to meetings to help them express their concerns. They may or may not be people with training in advocacy or may not have special education experience. And they may or may not have a role to play in special education in Ontario. Parent advocates help parents to communicate, and all parents have the right to advocate for their child. For more about parent advocates, please contact your Learning Disabilities Association. In Sudbury and area, it is at www.ldasudbury.ca. We are now going to visit an important concept in fostering a proactive approach to a shared solution. Knowing how your child learns means that you are aware of their type of intelligence, their learning style, what strategies they're having success with, what assistive technology or software that they are comfortable using, and what are the accommodations that are listed on their individual education plan. All of this information should be listed on your child's OSR file. You can access that file, find out if it's in there, and make sure that your teacher and your child and you are well versed in it. And now we will end with a closing activity. In revisiting our metaphor regarding conflict being like a puzzle, remember that you can fight it out or you can try to figure it out. So here's a picture puzzle that represents how these modules supported your understanding of how to work towards shared solutions for your child. It's not to fight, it's not to flight, it's, have you figured it out? The puzzle stands for unite. That is the key, absolutely, in shared solutions. Thank you for your time.